Right, hello Year 10. This is our first lesson that we're going to do online. I just wanted to give you a very quick guide as to how you can participate with this because I'll be putting up all of the lessons up online as the presentation, so you can kind of keep going through it as though we were still in school. So just have a look out for this key I've put together for you. So as we go through, just have a look out for the pause button. So that just denotes that you should just pause the video while I've asked you to do a task. That just allows you to think about the task and to give it a go. There's also going to be a timer there, so that will tell you roughly how long it should take. You can do for longer or shorter if you want to. It's just a sort of rough kind of time that I would expect a task to take of you. We've got a couple of other symbols here just to denote what you should be doing while you're pausing the video. So there could either be writing time, for example, where maybe you'll be writing an exam style question, or it could be thinking time. So it could either be the writing hand or the light bulb. So just think about that if those symbols come up. A couple of things you're going to need for the lesson today. So you'll need the worksheet that I've put together for you and also the information sheet which I've put together for you. They're both found on Show My Homework. So the lesson today is going to be on why did unemployment increase in Germany in the early 1930s. So just as a starter here, I've put down this for you. So there's a sort of expression that says mostly throughout the whole of the 20th century and even today, which is when America sneezes, the whole world catches a cold. I just want you to think just for 3 minutes, what do you think is meant by this statement and how might this have affected events in the early 1930s in Germany? I've given you a picture there for you to think about. You're all pretty much aware of what that might mean, but anyway, give this for 3 minutes, fill in the information in your sheet, and then we'll come back together. So pause your video now, please. Okay, I'm assuming you've paused the video and you've given that a go, so we'll just move on. Got some keywords here for you as well. I'm going to put together a keyword chart actually for you to keep filling in as we go. So let's quickly go through these keywords. We have depression. When we're talking about the economy, an economic depression is a very long and severe downturn in the economy. So you might have heard of a recession, for example, when the world went through a recession in 2007, which we're just coming out of. But a depression is much worse than that because it's much longer and much worse in terms of the fact that the economy takes a bigger hit. So that's what we see today. The stock market is a place where sort of lots of people trade, and it's a place where you can buy and sell shares of something. So the biggest one at this time was in Wall Street in New York. As I said there, it generates a lot of wealth due to the risk it has. That risk can also pose problems as well, and that is what we will see today. A scapegoat is a person or a thing that is blamed for the wrongdoing or mistakes of others. So when things go wrong, sometimes some groups in society like to point the finger at certain people to say that's where the problem was. So that again is something we have to bear in mind about what the consequences really were of this big event we're going to be looking at today. And real wages is a bit of a tough one to understand, but essentially you have wages that might increase in terms of the amount you're being paid every year. However, if other things increase, such as your bills, for example, or the price of food, then actually your real wages might go down because the amount you have to spend on basic goods might increase, which means the amount of actual money you get to spend on other things decreases. So that's just something to think about as well. We have to be a bit careful when we think about wages. Are they really increasing? So that's something we need to be looking out for today and just be aware of what it means. So just pause the video now and just put these words and the definitions into your word bank, please. Okay, and we'll move on from that now. So just to briefly explain why the stock market was so important at this time. The biggest one, as we've said already, was in New York, and that's Wall Street, which you're already aware of. You know already that things like the Dawes Plan and the Young Plan allowed Germany to take a lot of loans out from America, and there were lots of sort of banks that relied on the stock market in Wall Street in order to be profitable. So Wall Street was an extremely important stock market in the world. It didn't just fuel the United States economy, but essentially fueled economies all around the world, especially the Western world and especially Europe. After Europe had come out of World War One, plenty of economic damage had been done to all of the economies after World War One, and plenty of countries had relied on Wall Street to generate a strong economy. Specifically Germany, because Germany had to pay the reparations to the Allies. And to do this successfully, we've seen that Stresemann took out many loans from America in order to keep the economy of Germany going and to keep it generating enough money for the German economy to progress. However, if Wall Street fails, the whole of the economy in the West fails as well. Suddenly, countries can't trade with one another as easily as they want to, and really the whole economic system of the West just collapses. So, in 1929, this huge event happened called the Great Depression, where exactly this situation occurred. And today, we're going to be having a look at the impact of Germany. So we've just got the starter there, going back to think about that. So when America sneezes, the whole world catches a cold. Well, if we think back to that, what does that mean? Well, if America essentially, it's the center of the financial world. So if that fails, the whole world fails. All of its economies really suffer from that. And Germany was, we've already said, at this particularly precarious position because of the reparations. So if any country is going to feel it the most, it's probably going to be Germany. And we'd already seen that Germany was aware of this. We'd seen this Stresemann speech that he had said in 1929, so before the Wall Street crash. It says the economic position is only flourishing on the surface. Germany is in fact dancing on a volcano. If the short-term loans are called in by America, a large section of our economy would collapse. So Stresemann had already foreseen this as a problem, and Germany wasn't in a completely stable place. To make things even worse, 2 weeks before the Great Depression actually happened, Stresemann had actually died of a heart attack. So Germany's greatest Weimar leader has just departed. He's not able to make any more great changes. It would be interesting really to see if Stresemann was still around throughout the Great Depression, what might have changed. But there's a double blow to Germany here. One of its core leaders has gone, and then just 2 weeks later, Germany's economy is essentially it just fails. So, just to explain a little bit as to how this really impacts Germany, we have the failure of the US stock market, which happens in October 1929. This leads to a massive decline in world trade. So if economies are failing, then the banks and the stock markets cease to trade with each other. It just doesn't make any sense for them to do that. So suddenly, countries really lower their trading, and this has a massive. Let's talk about this one first. Also, because of the failure of the US stock markets and the fact that they're losing money very rapidly, the US banks then have to recall the German loans that German businesses had been completely dependent on throughout the 1920s. This both means that the demand for German goods drop. So if Germany's industry is producing things, suddenly there's not much of a demand for that anymore, which puts a real strain on the economy. And that then really leads to the fact that some German firms go bankrupt. So some companies just can't sustain themselves anymore, and they have to, they go under because they're just not profitable anymore. And both of these things mean that millions of Germans eventually lose their jobs due to this. And that then naturally leads to high numbers of Germans living in poverty. And this is where the economic depression in Germany comes in. So we can see just how tied Germany was there to the US economy. I just want you to start off watching this video, please. So I've put the link on Show My Homework. If you can watch that and just consider the following questions here and write them down on your worksheet. How might this situation benefit Hitler? And also, who or what is he able to use as a scapegoat? Remember, a scapegoat is someone that is being blamed. So who could he use as a scapegoat? And how is that really going to affect him? Just watch this video, please. 3 minutes, give it some thought, and then we'll come back together. So pause the video now. Okay, I assume you've watched that video and you've given those 2 questions some thought. So the very first task that I want you to do is to just create a flowchart here about the Great Depression, what caused it, and therefore what was the impact on the German people. Then what did the Weimar government try to do to deal with this crisis? And finally, what happened to the far right and far left parties in Germany as a consequence of the Great Depression? So use the information sheet on Show My Homework and also complete the flowchart. And that should roughly take you about 20 minutes. So if you can start to complete your flowchart now, that would be absolutely fantastic. So you can pause the video. Okay, brilliant. I believe you would have done your flowchart by now, so that would be brilliant if you have done that. The last thing that I would like you to do then, just based on the information that you've gathered here, is just to have a look at a couple of interpretations and try to write the answers based on these interpretations. So I've given you 2 here, and it's the question that you find in the exam about the different views that they show here. So just read the question. It says, study interpretations 1 and 2. They give different views about the effects of the Wall Street crash on Germany. What is the main difference between these views? Explain your answer using details from both interpretations, and I'll read them both out to you. So we have interpretation 1, which is from a website describing the political and social effects of the Wall Street crash on Germany, and it says, people demanded political action, but the Weimar government failed them. From 1930 to 32, the Chancellor Heinrich Brüning proposed that the government raise taxes to pay the cost of unemployment benefit and reduce unemployment benefit to make payments more affordable. So then we have interpretation 2, which is from the website www.theholocaustexplained.com, which says, during the 1920s, the German economy had been supported by loans from American banks. After the Wall Street crash, the Americans wanted their money back and called in the loans. America gave Germany just 90 days to start repayments. Germany could not pay. As in America, German businesses failed. Unemployment reached more than 4 million by 1931. Germany suspended payment of reparations to the Allies. So remember here, we're looking at what the 2 different views are and how they differ. Okay, so there's 2 main different sort of views as to what had really happened afterwards as a consequence. So what are they? And remember to follow this structure when you do that. Okay, so the first thing is you identify the main view of interpretation 1. You then do step 2, which says give evidence that supports this view. So you're quoting something from the source that backs up your point. Okay, and then you do your next. You look at the next interpretation. So identify the main view of interpretation 2, and then you give a quote that supports that. Okay, so please use the blue writing there as sentence starters to help you. If you can do all 4 points there, it's an easy 4 marks. That's absolutely brilliant. Then the next thing I'd like you to do after that is to try the follow-up question here. So it says, suggest one reason why interpretations 1 and 2 give different views about the effects of the Wall Street crash. You may use sources B and C to help explain your answer. So source B is the source that we've already looked at before. It's that speech by Stresemann about the economy only flourishing on the surface, but it's actually dancing on a volcano. And then we have source C, and this is from Berlin Stories by Christopher Isherwood, and he was a British journalist that lived in Berlin at the time that Hitler came to power, and he says, each week there were new emergency decrees. Bruning's wary episcopal, oh my goodness, what a word, episcopal voice issued commands and was not obeyed. Berlin was in a state of civil war. Hate exploded out of nowhere, At street corners, in restaurants, cinemas, at midnight or in the middle of the afternoon. Bruning is weak, they said. What these swine need is a man with hair on his chest. So we have those two sources there, and you know that the two interpretations, or one of the interpretations, sorry, is going to be linked with one of the sources, and the other is going to be linked with the other one. Okay, so this is the structure you do. Okay, and remember, it's the bit in the red that you always start off by saying. You say the interpretations may differ because they've given weight to two different sources. So that's how you start the question. You just write that out. Okay, so what you will then need to do is just show how the sources match and how the interpretations are placing emphasis on each one. So you can start off by having a look at one source and say what it suggests and add the quote to back it up. And then you say, this gives some support to interpretation 1 or 2 because, and you explain why. And then you say, which suggests that more weight has been given to this source. Then you say, on the other hand, the other source suggests that, and you add another quote to back up that point that you've just made. And you say, this gives some support to interpretation or the other interpretation because, and you explain why. You've linked that one with that interpretation. And then you say, which suggests that more weight has been given to this source. Okay. So again, that's 4 marks there. If you can do all of that, that's a nice 4 marks. Okay. Just to say as well, both of those questions, you can pause the video now. They should take you probably together about 15 minutes, I think, of writing time. So if you want to pause your video now, you can make sure that you're using those structures that I've put on the presentation here. So go ahead and pause now and give that a go. Okay. I'm guessing that you've now written both of your answers to those pieces, which is absolutely fantastic. Just to say now, we've got 3 lessons this week. So we have one on Monday 23rd of March, Tuesday 24th of March, and Wednesday 25th of March. I'll be uploading the videos and the content as soon as I can. But just to say that all work for this week needs to be uploaded onto Show My Homework by the end of Thursday, please. Okay, so I need everything you've done for this week back by the end of that day so I can then look at it, mark it, and provide you feedback for next week's lessons. Okay, well done for working at home. This is a really, really unusual situation, but as you can appreciate, the time we're missing together is very crucial, especially for you getting in all of the information into your heads, ready for when we all come back. So please do work hard while we're away. So well done, guys, and look after yourself and take it easy. And I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you very much.